Welcome to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation, the Future Radio. Hey, I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Thursday, April 22nd, 2021, and we are live. Hope everybody's doing well today. Well, it's been a very, very busy day, and it's a lot going on. We're going to cover a few of these topics here. I just finished teaching my online course, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. So we just wrapped up an entire course, and I'm getting ready to teach class 1 of a new session, okay? And class 1 is going to start up, it's going to be Saturday, March 1st, 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern, May 1st, Saturday, May 1st, 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, but you'll hear more about that. All right, so on today's show, we've been covering what's been going on in Georgia as well as other states dealing with these voter restriction laws that are being pushed in state legislatures, pushed by Republicans. And there was a hearing that took place in the Senate, U.S. Senate, on Tuesday, April 20th, okay? And Stacey Abrams testified in the hearing. And Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana, Republican, made the mistake of asking her what are some of the things that she disagrees with in the Senate Bill 202 out of Georgia. He said, you think it's a racist bill? You think there's some things in the bill that are racist? He asked her to name some of the things that she disagrees with, and she went down the list and named a number of them, and so many he had to tell, okay, that's enough. We're going to share that with you. Okay, this is what happens when you mess with African Americans and don't know what you're talking about. But coming out of Georgia also, it's been announced that Georgia faith leaders are calling for a boycott of Home Depot. Georgia faith leaders are calling for a boycott of Home Depot, and this was announced on Tuesday, April 20th as well, same day as the Senate hearing was taking place dealing with the voter restriction bills. So we're going to talk some about this, and this deals with Home Depot's response to Senate Bill 202 out of Georgia. Georgia faith leaders call for nationwide boycott of Home Depot over response to voting law. Okay, over response to voting law. All right, so we'll discuss that. And then with all this talk dealing with voter restriction bills, you're hearing also a lot about gerrymandering. And gerrymandering deals with redrawing congressional districts or redrawing state districts, what have you. And it's designed to lock out certain groups of people, usually targeting African Americans, and to make it harder for us to impact elections. So we're going to talk about how gerrymandering began in the U.S., how gerrymandering began in the U.S., and what is gerrymandering. And then also, we found out today that Shock G of the Digital Underground has passed away at age 57. Okay, and we all remember the Humpty Dance is your dance, do the hump. Okay, we remember Digital Underground and the Humpty Dance was Shock G, who wore the nose and the glasses. He's passed away at age 57. Hip Hop DX has an article about this. Digital Underground legend Shock G, dead at age 57. And we know we just lost Black Rob. We just lost DMX. So, this is a big loss as well. He was Digital Underground co-founder Chop Master J confirmed the news in an Instagram post on Thursday night, April 22nd. So we'll talk some about that as well. All right. Now on the African History Network show, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world. Because right now it's corrects wrong behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. So when you control the radius of a man or woman's thoughts, you can control the circumference of his or her actions, because the mind can't do or teach what it doesn't know. Now, we deal with a number of different topics here on the African History Network show. We deal with current events in history and politics, education, economic empowerment, entrepreneurship, relationships, love, sex, health issues, and much, much more. Sign up for our email newsletter. Text the word Kemet, Kemet, the 22828 to sign up for our email newsletter. Text the word Kemet, Kemet, the 22828 to sign up for our email newsletter. Also visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Sign up for our email newsletter there as well. You can also register for the online course that I'm teaching to starting up Saturday, May 1st, 2021, 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's a 9-week, 18-hour online course, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. So we'll deal with thousands of years of history and what led up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. This is an online course. You can watch from around the world. We do the sessions live. They're all recorded. You can go back and watch them over and over again. You can ask questions during class through the live text chat as well. And I do a PowerPoint presentation. We have book articles. We have articles, book references, video clips, everything. Okay, so we deal with what led up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. We do ancient Egypt, ancient Kemet, Nubia, Ta-Nehisi, the 800-year occupation of Europe by the Africans known as the Moors. And we do what led up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place also. All right, so visit we just posted the link here on the thread of the broadcast. You can also visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. And the class is regularly $130. It's on sale $80. As soon as you register, there's a lot of bonus content you can start watching, because you can start watching the class that just ended. So go ahead and register for that now. Okay. I want to jump into this first topic right before the break. I just sent you the clips, Shakita. So ABC News has an article here. Georgia faith leaders call for nationwide boycott of Home Depot over response to voting law. Georgia faith leaders call for nationwide boycott of Home Depot over response to voting law. And this is being led by Bishop Reginald Jackson also. And you've heard me talk about Bishop Reginald Jackson here on the show before. So now this boycott was announced on Tuesday, April 20th, same day as the Senate hearing took place. Now, Governor Brian Kemp blasted the boycott, saying he stands with Home Depot. Of course he would. But remember Brian Kemp, who stole the election from Stacey Abrams because he was Secretary of State, stole the gubernatorial election from Stacey Abrams because he was Secretary of State leading up to that election. Now, hearkening back to the boycotts during the civil rights movement and apartheid, Georgia faith leaders representing over 1,000 Georgia churches have called for a nationwide boycott of Home Depot, Home Depot, accusing the largest company based in Georgia of standing on the sidelines in the voting rights battle playing out not just in Georgia, but across the country. So we know that there are 361 bills being pushed, the Republicans are trying to push through in 47 states, okay? 361 bills, 39 here in the state of Michigan. Now, a boycott is not something we wanted to do, but now it is something that we must do. A boycott is not something that we wanted to do, but now it is something that we must do, said Bishop Reginald T. Jackson in a statement read during a press conference on Tuesday. He said that, now he was not able to make it to the press conference, but in the statement that he sent, he said they have simply refused to respond not only to our request to meet, but to their other corporate partners They have simply refused to respond not only to our request to meet, but to their other corporate partners. They believe their silence is appropriate, but not on the issue of voting rights. Blacks and people of color, like others, are also their customers, and they benefit from our dollars. We believe they should oppose any effort to suppress our votes. Now, see, this is an example, once again, of leveraging our economics to enforce our politics, leveraging our economics to enforce our politics. So a lot of people after the presidential election, an election for Senate and House of Representatives, they were saying, okay, so now that we voted, now how do we hold people accountable? You had people saying, oh, well, you voted them into office now, you can't hold them accountable. Well, if you think you can't hold people accountable, that means you've been listening to the wrong people, okay? You need to stop listening to the simple Simon-ass people who've been lying to you, telling you you can't hold people accountable. You listen to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM Superstation of Future Radio. I'm Michael Imhotep. We'll be back in a few minutes.
Gain knowledge in minutes from insightful summaries of progressive and socially conscious books. Blacklisted gives you access to curated content that'll satisfy your curiosity to learn and understand different perspectives. Empower yourself through inspirational and actionable ideas. It's easy to read or listen to on the go. Blacklisted. Empower yourself. Start your free trial today.
We all know the cannabis industry is headed toward an uprise in the past decade. What happens when there is a brand that brings this uprise in a blow? The cannabis industry welcomes her uprise. Hustle her hemp. Delivering excellence with pride is her watchword, and how you choose to embrace it makes it a priority. From cultivating rich cannabis into exquisite and tastefully finished CBD products to delivery, Hustle Her Hemp leaves no stone unturned. Hustle Her Hemp's mission is to empower women of color by building business and creating legacies, uniting beauty, health, and business. We are a pure definition of how we want the CBD industry to become in the future. While we are redefining innovation, we bring the same energy to improving the quality of life. Hustle Her Hemp is the new uprise.
Hi, I'm Joel Wilson, President and CEO of JCW Computer Consulting LLC, a technology implementation firm with over 20 years of satisfying customers. We offer a full spectrum of industry top-tier branded services. We are an authorized partner or reseller for Lenovo, Zoom, T-Mobile, Microsoft 365 and Surface tablets, Google Workspace, Acer, Asus, Samsung, PCmatic security software, and many more. Our online store features laptops, Chromebooks, computers, printers, accessories, and software. Businesses, take advantage of our free 1-hour Zoom tech consultation and know we offer top nationwide high-speed internet service providers, voice over IP, and cellular phone services. Home users, don't miss our current in-stock Chromebook inventory. Please visit us at jcwcc.com or call 215-879-6701.
Are you getting ready for fall or winter? We have the solution for all seasonal clothing needs. Kemeticwear.com is the go-to online source for Kemetic African fashion and lifestyle products with a contemporary twist. We're committed to offering unique styles reflecting our African heritage. Kemeticwear.com is inspired by KemeticScribes.com to influence our people in learning and showing pride. Please visit our website at Kemeticwear.com.
All right, stand by. Let's keep going. See, this is what I'm explaining. So then when you add another layer onto this, dealing with the hypersexualization of African-American women, that ties into the Jezebel stereotype, that then ties into African-American women being used as a sexual commodity during slavery and being used to breed. And it was not illegal to rape a black woman because she was your property. If you were a slave owner, she was your property. And then that same mindset then stays in place after slavery ends, and you have all these negative stereotypical images of African Americans, but then you have white corporations that finance these negative stereotypical images and use people like Cardi B and Megan Thee Stallion to market stripper music and prostitution music and market prostitution. All of this is connected. The way people treat you is largely based upon what people think about you. What people think about you is largely based upon what they've been taught about you. What they've been taught about you is largely based upon what they read, seen, and heard about you. This is why other people who have their history and culture intact are more guarded about the images that are projected about them. They don't just tolerate anything. We're the only ones that just tolerate anything like that. And then when you have some of our artists speak out and say things about other groups, they get put in check. Oh, you think I'm kidding? Go back to 1995. Didn't Michael Jackson have a song, They Don't Really Care About Us? And the Anti-Defamation League came out against Michael Jackson and said he said some negative things in the song about Jews. I still have articles from ADL's website about that. What did Sony do? Sony didn't say, well, change the radio station if you don't like his song. Sony didn't say, oh, you need to teach your children better if you don't like his song. Sony didn't say, oh, he's not talking about you, he's talking about some other Jews. Sony didn't say that. You know what Sony did? Sony took every last one of those CDs off the shelf, removed those lines from the song. It was only like 2 or 3 lines in the song. They removed those lines in the song and then put the CD back on the shelf. But when we speak up against negative corporate control hip hop, we're told, oh, if you don't like it, change the station. Or if you don't like it, don't buy it. Oh, you need to teach your children better. That's not what they tell other people. Welcome back to the African History Network show right here on 910 AM, the Superstation, the Future Radio. I'm your host, Brother Michael Imhotep. It is Thursday, April 22nd, 2021. And we are live. Hope everybody's doing well. Okay, so right before the break, we were talking about the economic boycott that has been announced in Georgia against Home Depot. Okay, this was announced on Tuesday, April 20th, 2021. And this is because of Home Depot's response to SB 202, Senate Bill 202 in the Georgia State Legislature. Now, you know, we've been talking about that here on this show constantly, giving you updates on what's taking place. We've also been talking about the fact that Republicans in 47 state legislatures have been trying to get past 361 voter restriction bills. Okay. And we know that many corporations have been speaking out. I shared with you the article from New York Times from April 14th. Okay. From April 14th. Hundreds of companies unite to oppose voting limits, but others abstain. Amazon, Google, GM, General Motors, and Starbucks were among those joining the biggest show of solidarity by businesses over legislation in numerous states. We know that you had 72 African-American CEOs who have organized, and they put out, they all signed on to a letter condemning the voter restriction bills. It's been led by Ken Frey, Merck Pharmaceuticals, and Ken Chenault, former CEO of American Express. Ken Chenault is African-American also. A lot of people don't know the CEO for, I think it's almost 2 decades, maybe 15, 20 years of American Express was African-American, Ken Chenault. Okay. So I want to go back to this. We're going to go to clip 1 in just a minute here also, Shakita. Now on Facebook, Alvin asked a question. If you're not going to boycott for a year, why bother? Well, if it's effective and you know what you're doing, you don't have to boycott for a year. When you go back and look in 1981 at the economic boycott, the nationwide boycott that Reverend Jesse Jackson and Rainbow Push led against Coca-Cola, that lasted about 30 days. That was very effective. You know what you're doing doesn't have to last a year. Okay. Sometimes it doesn't have to, especially with technology, with social media. When we go look at the economic pressure that was put on Indiana by corporations when the Indiana transgender bathroom bill came out. Okay. Because of economic pressure, within a week, Indiana, the state legislature changed the bill. That's 2015. Okay. So with social media, if you know what you're doing, it doesn't have to last a year. Okay. So we know the Montgomery bus boycott lasted 381 days, but they didn't have social media. And that started out as a one-day boycott. So if they had listened to people that said, well, if you're not going to boycott a year, why boycott? That started out as a one-day boycott if you actually study it. See, I'm a historian. That started out as a one-day boycott. Started out Monday morning, December 5th, 1955. Then that evening they met at Holt Street Baptist Church, because Holt Street Baptist Church was the Baptist church where they organized the Montgomery bus boycott. And because of the overwhelming support that they got in that bus boycott that one day, Monday morning, they decided to keep going with the boycott. Ended up lasting 381 days. And February 1st, 1956, attorney Fred Gray filed a lawsuit called Browder versus Gale. Browder versus Gale is the lawsuit involving the Montgomery bus boycott that went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. And because of that lawsuit, that's what ended segregation on the buses in Montgomery, Alabama. This is why you need to study history and law. Okay, let's go back to this. Now, if you look at this article here from abcnews.com, abcnews.go.com, it's actually their official website. Georgia faith leaders call for nationwide boycott of Home Depot over response to voting law. This is from April 20th, 2021. Now, Governor Brian Kemp blasted the boycott, saying he stands with Home Depot. Of course he would. He stands with Donald Trump also. Okay. He stands with Donald Trump also. I wanted Brian Kemp stands with the insurrectionists, January 6th, 2021. So they, Bishop Reginald T. Jackson, in a statement that was read at the announcement of the economic boycott against Home Depot, he said they have simply refused to respond not only to our request to meet, referring to Home Depot, but to their other corporate partners. They believe their silence is appropriate, but not on the issue of voting rights. Blacks and people of color, like others, are also their customers, and they benefit from our dollars. We believe they should oppose any effort to suppress our votes. Okay, now Bishop Reginald Jackson is the movement's leader and head of the African Methodist Episcopal Church's 6th district that includes over 500 AME churches in Georgia, Okay. And he did not attend the event outside at Home Depot in Decatur, Georgia, but he sent a statement. Now, according to his statement, the coalition could add more companies to the boycott call, singling out Chick-fil-A and Arby's. Okay. Arby's got the meat, but Arby's may be getting the boycott too. We'll see. Okay. He said they got it was a commercial. So they've got the beef. I think it is for Arby's. Now I'm a vegetarian. I haven't had meat in 16 years. So, but I have a background in marketing, so I pay attention to commercials. So Arby's may be getting the economic boycott as well. We'll see. But singling out Chick-fil-A and Arby's, which the coalition plans to contact this week, Bishop Reginald Jackson was adamant the boycott was led by faith leaders directly disrupting the Republican espoused idea that President Joe Biden and far-right and Fair Fight Action founder Stacey Abrams are behind it. Okay, he said, no, we're behind. He said, no, they're not behind this economic boycott. We're behind this economic boycott. All right. Okay, so you have this taking place, and you're going to hear a lot more about this as well. Now, the boycott call came on the same day as the Senate Judiciary testimony, as the Senate Judiciary Committee took testimony from Stacey Abrams and others at a hearing focused in part on the nearly 100-page bill Republican Governor Brian Kemp signed into law in late March. That's Senate Bill 202. And we know he signed that bill into law right behind him. Well, first of all, it was 7 men in the room signing the bill, all white. I call them the 7 dwarfs. Okay, it was 7 Governor Brian Kemp and 6 other dwarfs, right? He signed the bill. Right behind them was the painting of a famous slave plantation in Georgia called the Callaway Plantation. All right. Outside was an African-American member of the state legislature named Park Cannon, knocking on the door, trying to get inside to witness the signing doing her job. She gets arrested by a bunch of white state troopers. This is all taking place at the same time. This is in Georgia. Okay. So now the launching of this economic boycott took place on the same day that the Senate Judiciary Committee took testimony from Stacey Abrams and others at a hearing focused in part on the nearly 100-page bill Governor Brian Kemp signed into law late March. He didn't read the bill either. He signed it within an hour of the state Senate passing the bill. Now, this Senate Bill 202 overhauls the state's election process. Now, since Governor Brian Kemp signed that bill, voting rights activists pressure campaign to, since Brian Kemp signed that bill, voting rights activists pressure campaign to get corporations to publicly oppose restrictive legislation has only ramped up. We know that Major League Baseball decided to move the 2021 All-Star Game and the draft out of Atlanta. They moved it to Colorado, okay, to protest Georgia's Senate Bill 202, a move that will result in an estimated economic impact loss of $100 million to Georgia, according to Cobb County Travel and Tourism. Now, faith leaders have backed away from previous calls to boycott Georgia-based companies that did not speak out against the bill, Senate Bill 202, before it was signed into law. So we covered this here on the show as well. They said they may have to boycott against Coca-Cola and some other corporations, but they backed off of that. Bishop Reginald Jackson at one point called for boycotts of Coca-Cola and Delta Airlines, but has since relented. In his statement Tuesday, April 20th, Bishop Reginald Jackson commended these corporations for changing their stances and said the coalition was, quote, glad to have them as partners in the struggle for a just and enduring democracy, end quote. Because what happened was when the funk hit the fan, okay, a lot of these corporations changed their stances. When the momentum and what was in the Senate Bill 202 became exposed, a lot of these corporations, Delta Airlines, Coca-Cola, they changed their stance. Okay, Home Depot hasn't. So this is why the economic boycott has been launched against Home Depot. All right, now I want to go to this clip. We're going to go to clip 1 here, Shakita, in just a second. So what happened was Senator John Kennedy of Louisiana at the Senate committee hearing, he tried to challenge Senate Judiciary Committee hearing on Tuesday. He tried to challenge Stacey Abrams, and he asked her, do you think Senate Bill 202 is racist? And what about what's in the bill that you don't like? Well, now he sounds dumb. Okay, I just want to let you know. Senator John Kennedy sounds dumb, but he's not. All right, he's not stupid. He plays stupid on TV and in the Senate. Okay, he's Oxford educated. He's not stupid. He just sounds like it. But here's what happened. Let's go to this clip, Shakita. Clip 1. You have to take it off mute. All right, we're going to... Okay. Go ahead, start it. Go ahead. Okay, this is from Morning Joe, and you're going to hear Eugene Robinson say she mowed him down. Press play.
Candidate and voting rights activist Stacey Abrams appeared before lawmakers this week for a hearing on voting rights.
How did that go?
It went pretty well. Mm-hmm. I mean, she kind of knows her stuff, you know. Yeah. At one point, Republican Senator John Kennedy pressed her on...
How did that go?
Well, she really, you know, she knows her stuff. I think it went pretty well. Yeah. Kennedy pressed her on her stance against Georgia's new voting law, you know, the one we've been talking about for weeks, asking her to list specific provisions that she disagrees with.
How did that go?
Pretty good. Take a look.
Tell me, you're against the Georgia bill, I gather. Is that right?
I'm against certain provisions of it, yes.
Okay, I think you called it a racist bill. Am I right?
I think there are provisions that are racist, yes.
Okay. Tell me specifically, just give me a list of the provisions that you objected.
I object to the provisions that remove access to the right to vote, that shorten the federal runoff period from 9 weeks to 4 weeks, that restrict the time that a voter can request return an absentee ballot application.
Slow down for me, because our audio is not real good here. Certainly. Could you start over for me?
Certainly.
Thank you.
It shortens the federal runoff period from 9 weeks to 4 weeks.
Okay.
It restricts the time a voter can request and return an absentee ballot application.
Right.
It requires that a voter has a photo identification or some other form of identification that they're willing to surrender in order to participate in the absentee ballot process.
Stop you. That's where they're going to not comparing signatures, but to voter ID.
Yes, sir. And as Ms. Eichels pointed out, we would become only the fourth state in the nation to require voters to put at risk their identity.
What else? What else?
It eliminates over 300 hours of Dropbox availability.
Okay, what else?
It bans nearly all out-of-precinct votes.
Bans what, I'm sorry?
It bans nearly all out-of-precinct votes.
Okay.
Meaning that you get to a precinct and you are in line for 4 hours and you get to the end of the line and you are not there between 5 and 7 p.m.
Okay,
what else? Start all over again.
Is that everything?
No, it is not. No, sir. It restricts the hours of operation because it's now under the guise of setting a standardized timeline. It makes it optional for counties that may not want to see expanded access to the right to vote. They can now limit their hours. Instead of those hours being from 7 to 7, they're now from 9 to 5, which may have an effect on voters who cannot vote during business hours, during early voting. It limits the...
Okay, I get the idea.
Yeah.
What?
What do you have in there?
Why do people keep underestimating her?
Matlock would have been very disappointed with Senator Kennedy. He of Oxford fame, and also, of course, John Kerry supporter. You don't ask the question if you don't know the answer, especially if you're trying to set somebody up like him. And I'll tell you something else. Maybe it was just the seersucker suits that made him so darn polite with his witnesses. But Senator Kennedy, he of Oxford fame and former John Kerry supporter, he kept trying to throw her off. He kept trying to interrupt her. She would explain.
He's got an audio problem.
He'd explain it. He'd cut her off. It just, seriously, this guy, I guess they don't teach Matlock at Oxford because he sure made a mess of things for himself, didn't he, Willie?
That was the definition of getting more than you bargained for, as Stacey Abrams calmly and coolly took through, along lot more than he thought she knew, perhaps, Gene Robinson. And it went on like that for a long time. Stacey Abrams was confronted by Senator Kennedy, but also Ted Cruz and other Republicans about her own race in 2018, asking her about other laws in other states. You got the sense perhaps there was some frustration that because of Stacey Abrams largely, that they no longer hold the majority in that body, the Republicans.
Yeah, exactly. And so they wanted to go after her. But you would think that they would have learned by now that if you're going to mess with Stacey Abrams, you better come correct. You better come with more than our Bo Matlock had yesterday. That was a riot. I was thinking the same thing, that is obviously something they don't teach at the Oxford Debating Union about dealing with powerful, intelligent people who are just going to. I mean, she mowed him down basically, and it was highly entertaining to watch.
Well, actually, it was a really great example for anybody who's sort of figuring out how do women develop their voices in this sea of how men do what they do. She was elegant, she was measured, she kept coming back, and she mowed him down without lifting a finger.
She had information.
Big question for Sam Stein is, or for anybody on this panel, is why in the world does anybody keep underestimating this woman? If you think about it, in terms of the way she turned out the vote, Georgia, the way she turned out the vote, saved our country. If you had any concern about Trump, I mean, this woman's not to be messed with in any way, shape, or form. And he was acting as if he was dealing with some like neophyte. He was condescending. He was arrogant. He was a moron.
He actually an Oxford grad.
My question is, did he actually think this woman whose job is essentially to understand voting laws in her state and to structure them in certain ways, did he actually think she would not understand the particulars of the law? It was a little confusing what he was getting at. I mean, obviously he thought he had some sort of intellectual superiority, but this is literally her work. Did he not expect that she would know the actual elements of law? To the broader point about underestimating Stacey Abrams, obviously 2020 was proof positive that you shouldn't do it. I think there's something else to discuss here, and this is not in any way to say that these voting laws are not malignant or anything like that. But oftentimes when states do pass these restrictions on voting, they have a paradoxical effect. They inspire or encourage or motivate people to go to the polls because precisely they feel targeted by the state apparatus. They look at it and say, oh, they don't want me to vote. I'm going to just wait even more hours in line to do so. And that could very well be what happens in Georgia. It's not to say that this law is a good thing, but it could be a motivating factor. It could prove Stacey Abrams right yet again, that she can organize, mobilize, and get people to the polls precisely because she wants to counteract restrictive voting measures.
Okay, so what happened was, so look here. Let me pull this picture up again. The Senator John Kennedy, right? What had happened was he got his ass kicked. That's what happened. All right. See, I'm telling you right now, these white men gonna learn. Stop messing with sisters. All right. First of all, Jim Jordan got his behind kicked by Representative Maxine Waters. Okay, she told him shut your mouth at a House hearing. Then Jim Jordan got his behind kicked by Representative Val Demings out of Florida. Okay, and he tried to challenge her on law enforcement, and she was in law enforcement for 27 years and the former chief of police. She tore his ass up too. That went viral as well. Then you got Senator John Kennedy tried to mess with Stacey Abrams. They're gonna learn leave black women alone. I'm trying to tell you right now. Okay, John Kennedy is not dumb. He just plays someone dumb on TV and in the U.S. Senate. He graduated from Oxford. He's not dumb. Okay, he just plays somebody dumb in the U.S. Senate and on television. But he got his behind whipped also. All right, now let's go back to and also she was on Joy Reid's show. Stacey Abrams was on Joy Reid's show. I think that was on the 21st. We'll play that interview. We'll play some of that on tomorrow's show. Okay. Now, I want to go back to information dealing with the economic boycott out of Georgia against Home Depot. Okay, let's go back to that. So this was announced on the same day as the hearing took place in the Senate. Okay, and let's pull that up. All right, I want to go back to this article here from abcnews.com. All right, now let's see. Let me back up. Okay, so once again, this is dealing with Senate Bill 202 in Georgia. Now, Reverend Lee May, the lead pastor of Transforming Faith Church, said the coalition is fluid in this boycott. The coalition is fluid in this boycott, but has four specific requests of Home Depot. Okay, 4 specific requests of Home Depot. Number 1, to speak out publicly and specifically against SB 202. And let me put this back up here. All right. Then also, in just a minute, we're going to deal with some of the history of gerrymandering and deal with exactly what is gerrymandering. All right. All right. Also, if you like this type of information, you can support the African History Network, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, also through PayPal, paypal.me/the AHN Show, or at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. All right. So 4 specific requests. 1, to speak out against any other restrictive voting provisions under consideration in other states, because we know there are a total of 361 bills as of March 24th. As of March 24th, 2021, the Brennan Center for Justice is tracking 361 bills in 47 state legislatures, including 39 here in the state of Michigan. 2, to support federal legislation that expands voter access and, quote, also restricts the ability to suppress the vote, end quote. And 3, to support any efforts, including investing in litigation, to stop SB 202 and other bills like it. All right. And okay, so 1 would be to speak out publicly and specifically against SB 202. That's 1. 2, speak out against any other restrictive voting provisions under consideration in other states. 3, to support federal legislation that expands voter access and also restricts the ability to suppress the vote. And 4, to support any efforts, including investing in litigation, to stop SB 202 and other bills like it. Now, Reverend May said, Home Depot, we're calling on you. I'm speaking to you right now. We're ready to have a conversation with you. You haven't been ready up to now, but our arms are wide open. We are people of faith, people of grace, and we're ready to have this conversation, but we're very clear those 4 things that we want to see accomplished. All right. Now, Home Depot responded, and a spokesperson for Home Depot responded to an inquiry from ABC News about the call for a boycott. The spokesperson for Home Depot said, we've decided that the appropriate approach for us to take is to continue to underscore our statement that all elections should be accessible, fair, and secure, and support broad voter participation, and to continue to work to ensure our associates in Georgia and across the country have the information and resources to vote, the spokesperson said. Now, the faith leaders blamed Governor Brian Kemp for the boycott and preempted a claim that it will hurt Georgians, saying it's not a job-killing boycott. It's not a job-killing boycott, But the governor responded swiftly, blasting the boycott and saying he stands with Home Depot and its employees. Now, a question I would ask Governor Brian Kemp is, why are you supporting white supremacy and racism? Why are you pushing this big lie? Why'd you sign SB 202? You didn't read the bill. You signed it within an hour of it passing the state Senate. And why are you pushing these voter restriction measures? You know the 2020 election was not stolen. You're pushing this big lie to then try to justify putting in these voter restriction measures. Now, Brian Kemp went on to say they did not ask to be in this political fight. It's unfair to them and their families and their livelihoods to be targeted. Well, if you think it's unfair, why then you should have vetoed the bill? See, what happened was you thought you and the 6 dwarfs were going to go behind closed doors and sign this bill, and that'd be the end of it. You did not understand the political can of whoop ass you just opened up, and you can't put the lid back on it. That's what happened. This is what happens when you mess with black people and the right to vote. This is what happens. Now, Brian Kemp went on to say, he's the 7th dwarf. I'm not sure which one is Dopey and Sleepy and Dummy or what have you, but he's in there. He went on to say, instead of boycotting people in great companies like Home Depot, we should be supporting them. And I know that's what I'm going to do. Why did you veto the bill? Well, why didn't you veto the bill then? You could have vetoed the bill. Now, Home Depot has 90 facilities, 15 distribution centers, and accounts for 30,000 jobs in Georgia, according to Brian Kemp. Now, this may have to expand to a nationwide economic boycott against Home Depot. We'll see. This may have to expand to a nationwide economic boycott against Home Depot. All right. But it's interesting how once all this blows up in their face, now they want to talk about jobs. Well, people were voting based upon economic conditions when they came out and voted in the 2020 election. People were voting for self-preservation, voting for economic conditions, voting to raise the federal minimum wage from $7.25 an hour to $15 an hour. Now that you've conspired with Republicans in the state legislature and you pushed through Senate Bill 202 and you thought you were going to go behind closed doors and make it harder for African Americans to vote, now they've retaliated against you. Now you want to talk about standing with the people and supporting jobs and supporting the corporation, all this stuff. What people know in Georgia is that Brian Kemp is up for re-election next year, 2022. And there's a 99% chance that Stacey Abrams is going to run for governor. She has put together a political infrastructure in Georgia. And they know Stacey Abrams will win. They know Stacey Abrams will win. So they're trying to keep her from winning. And they also know that Senator Raphael Warnock is up for re-election in 2022 because his Senate seat, he was carrying out the last 2 years of a 6-year term, the Senate seat he just won. So he has to run again next year also. So in Georgia, the Republicans are trying to take back that Senate seat. Now, Senator Raphael Warnock also testified. He also spoke at the Senate hearing on Tuesday. We're going to go to clip 2, Shakita. We're going to squeeze this in here. Senator Raphael Warnock, and you also get to hear Stacey Abrams again. They advocate for national voting rights legislation after Georgia voting law. Let's go to this clip.
The last election. And in response to this swell in Democratic participation, politicians in our state legislature responded not in celebration, but with retaliation. They could have gotten busy having not seeing the outcome that some of them wanted, they could have gotten busy changing their message or adjusting their policy. Instead, they got busy changing the rules as if the democracy belongs to them and not the people. We've seen voter suppression bills since the election in November and January all across this country. 360 voter suppression bills in 47 states, an increase of 100 bills since I highlighted this issue on the Senate floor just a month ago. As of today, 5 of these bills, including in my own state of Georgia, have been signed into law. The truth is, politicians in their craven lust for power are willing to sacrifice our democracy by using the big lie as a pretext for their true aim. Some people don't want some people to vote. Be sure we've seen these kinds of voter suppression tactics before, aimed at the same communities. They are a part of a long and shameful history in Georgia and throughout our nation. But that history is also filled with moments of hope and promise.
As a necessary reminder, post-Reconstruction laws known as Jim Crow that targeted Black voters never explicitly excluded eligible citizens by race. Then, as now, the laws surgically aimed at behaviors to limit access. With hundreds of bills pending, a significant number of the worst attacks on the right to vote are made possible by the Supreme Court's gutting of the Voting Rights Act of 1965 and the 2013 Shelby County v. Holder decision. That decision that authorized states and localities with a history of voting discrimination to again impose limits, restrictions, and barriers to participation. The dramatic proliferation of state-level anti-voting laws across the country in 2021 demonstrates the urgent need for Congress to bring the VRA's pre-clearance formula into the modern era, to reinstate federal oversight over discriminatory voting practices, and to strengthen and protect voting rights wherever suppression occurs. Protecting voting rights has been a bipartisan endeavor since the enactment of the Voting Rights Act of 1965 and through every subsequent reauthorization. While each of us may likely have declared party loyalty, our first obligation to the fundamental standards of democracy, which must be aggressively nonpartisan. Actions taken to restrict access, thwart participation, or discourage engagement are antithetical to our national creed and should be condemned by every patriot. Instead, we must advocate for voting rights, not to ensure the success of a single party or ideology, but to guarantee a vigorous and fair debate amongst Americans of goodwill.
Okay. We're out of time here on 910 AM Superstation WFDF. Those watching on Facebook and YouTube, keep watching. We're going to keep broadcasting. Remember, right now, it's correct. Wrong behavior is not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you tomorrow night. Peace. All right, stand by. Okay, we're going to get to this last topic here. All right, don't forget to register for the online course that starts up Saturday. Saturday, May 1st. I pushed it back to May 1st. It's going to be Saturday, May 1st. So I'm trying to get everything ready. 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Okay. This is a 9-week, 18-hour course that I'm teaching, and we deal with thousands of years of history and what led up to transatlantic slave trade taking place. We do the classes live. All the classes are recorded. You can go back and watch them over and over again. And we'll deal with thousands of years of history also. I do a PowerPoint presentation. We have book articles. We have articles, book references, video clips, everything. I posted the link here. You can go ahead and register for it. As soon as you register, there's bonus content you can start watching. We had a section on Tuesdays, and that course just ended. So you can go and you can watch those sessions. There's about 10 of them. And you'll be ready for Saturday, May 1st. So the class is regularly $130. It's on sale $80 right now. As soon as you register, you can start watching.
Black Bees products are a collection of natural, organic, personal care products with an appreciation of nature and bees. Our philosophy is without bees, we have nothing. We are honoring our Nile Valley ancestors who understood the importance of bees. Black Bees created a high-quality, natural, organic personal care line that would be affordable to everyone. We hope you try and enjoy our Black Bees products line and come back and visit us at blackbeesproducts.com.
We all know the cannabis industry is headed toward an uprise in the past decade. What happens when there is a brand that brings this uprise in a blow? The cannabis industry welcomes her uprise. Hustle her hemp. Delivering excellence with pride is her watchword, and how you choose to embrace it makes it a priority. From cultivating rich cannabis into exquisite and tastefully finished CBD products to delivery, Hustle Her Hemp leaves no stone unturned. Hustle Her Hemp's mission is to empower women of color by building business and creating legacies, uniting beauty, health, and business. We are a pure definition of how we want the CBD industry to become in the future. While we are redefining innovation, we bring the same energy to improving the quality of life. Hustle Her Hemp is the new uprise.
With blackbusinesstea.com, the messages are clear and meaningful. Keep your business in the black and out of the red. Mind your black business, know your numbers, and plan strategically. Black Business Boss, lead your industry. Support black business, encourage, patronize, and uplift one another. blackbusinesstea.com currently has products sold in Detroit, Atlanta, Chicago, and Los Angeles, with proceeds returned to the black community. They have a wide selection of hoodies, t-shirts, mugs, hats, sweatshirts that support black-owned businesses. Visit the website blackbusinesstee.com. That's blackbusinesstee.com. For 25 years, the Black History 101 Mobile Museum has carried on the rich legacy of the Black Museum movement in America by showcasing original artifacts of the Black experience at colleges, universities, K-12 schools, corporations, libraries, conferences, and cultural events, making it the most traversed Black History mobile exhibit in American history. Dr. Khalid El Hakim is the founder of the Black History 101 Mobile Museum, and he is a highly sought-after public speaker on topics of Black history, social studies, education, museum studies, hip-hop, and race relations. Dr. Khalid was named among the change makers for NBC Universal's Erase the Hate campaign and listed as one of the 100 men of distinction for Black enterprise. He recently founded the Michigan Hip Hop Archive on the campus of Western Michigan University. The Black History 101 Mobile Museum is currently scheduling in-person and virtual exhibits nationwide. For more information, please contact Dr. Khalid Al Hakim directly at 313-645-4197, 313-645-4197, or visit their website at blackhistorymobilemuseum.com. That's blackhistorymobilemuseum.com. You can also email him at bhistory101@yahoo.com, bhistory101@yahoo.com. All right, now at the beginning of the show, I talked about the passing of hip hop legend Shock G of the Digital Underground, and we got the news today that he passed away, age 57. And this is a post from Sheila E. Shock G, gone too soon. You did so much for the Bay. For the Bay Area. Once you created Digital Underground, we honor you and we will miss you, praying for your love. There was an article from, what was this here? There's an article from hip hop Hip Hop DX, I think it is. It talks about Shock G. Digital Underground legend Shock G, dead at 57. Let me pull this up here. I have a post here from, it's a post that I did also, let's see, from The Source. Okay, so we got that as well. Source magazine. Let me pull up this article here from hiphopdx.com. Okay, just a second here. Get this up as well. All right, let's look at this. Is this up? So we know we just lost Black Rob. Used to be on Bad Boy. And we just lost DMX. So a lot of these artists, from the 80s and 90s are passing away on us. Okay, so Digital Underground legend Shock G dead at age 7. We got the news April 22nd, 21. In what seems almost like a cruel joke, another hip hop legend has passed away nearly 2 weeks after DMX suffered a fatal heart attack, and 5 days after former Bad Boy Records rapper Black Rob suffered the same fate. Digital Underground rapper Shock G has also died. Now, Digital Underground co-founder Chopmaster confirmed the news in an Instagram post on Thursday, April 22nd. He said 34 years ago, almost to the day, he had a wild idea. We can be a hip hop band, take on the world, he wrote. Through it all, the dream became a reality. And the reality became a nightmare for some. And now he's awakened from the famed Long Live Shock G, aka Humpty Hump, and rest in peace, my brother Greg Jacobs. So here's a post here from Chopmaster J of Digital Underground. Now, founded in Oakland, California during the late 1980s, the Digital Underground was perhaps best known for the 1990 Sex Packets single. Sex Packets was the CD. Sex Packets single, The Humpty Dance, which reached #1 on the Billboard Rap Singles chart. So I remember when Sex Packets came out. I remember, and Tupac was with Digital Underground. Before Tupac went solo, Tupac was with Digital Underground. They had a song, I Get Around. Okay, I Get Around. And we know that in Coming to America 2, the sequel to Coming to America, they sing some verses of the Humpty Dance in the song also. Leslie Jones and the Queen of Zamunda, all right, Sherry Headley. Okay, so the Humpty Dance reached #1 on the Billboard Rap Singles chart. Let me see if we can blow this up some here. But they all introduced the young Tupac Shakur to the world when they recruited him to be their backup dancer on several tours. Okay. In a 2017 interview with Rolling Stone, Shock G talked about their time together, saying he was on TNT Records with us for 4 years. He was with Death Row for 9 months. So you do the math. He said he was on TNT Records with us for 4 years. He was with Death Row for 9 months. So you do the math. He did 5 tours with us, including Japan. Over those 3 or 4 years that he was around us, we did a lot of touring and a lot of living together on the tour bus. And that's how we know the man. Okay. He said, while Shock G will forever be remembered as the guy rocking the fake nose, sunglasses, and furry white hat, he will also go down as one of Oakland hip hop's most successful exports. But as Jay-Z producer Young Guru wrote in a tribute post, he was so much more than just a funny dude in the Humpty Dance video. He said, please understand that Shock G was so much more than a character. He was a musical genius. I wish he got a chance to do something like Drink Champs. He was a serious musician, played instruments, changed a sound, introduced Tupac, so underrated. Here's a tweet from Young Guru also. All right, let's see here. All right, now, naturally, Twitter is exploding with reactions to the latest hip-hop death from Pharaoh Monch and Evidence to Static Selecta and LP. There's no shortage of tributes flowing in for the late MC. Hip Hop DX sends our condolences to Shock G's loved ones. All right, so check out this article. We'll post a link here. And I don't, as of yet, I haven't seen anything saying cause of death. Let's see. Okay, no, I haven't seen anything saying cause of death. They have pictures of a couple pictures of him here with Tupac also. So a lot of people remember the Humpty Dance, remember Shock G with the fake nose and glasses on and the fur hat. Okay. I remember all this came out. Here he is with Tupac. Here's another picture of him. All right, here's another one here. Yep. All right. Okay, I want to get to this. This last story. This deals with the history of gerrymandering. Okay, so all of this talk about voter restriction bills, and you, in the talk about voter restriction bills, you hear about gerrymandering as well. But the question has to be asked, okay, how did gerrymandering begin in the U.S. and what exactly is gerrymandering? There was an article that I saw from history.com. Actually, I saw it April 21st. It was updated April 20th. I saw it April 21st from history.com. How gerrymandering began in the U.S. How gerrymandering began in the U.S. Okay, we're going to go to this here. Pull this up just a second here. Okay, so long before it got its name, gerrymandering was already happening in the U.S. And we're going to go to this article here. Let me flip over. So long before it got its name, gerrymandering had already began in the U.S. In March of 1812, the Boston Gazette ran a political cartoon depicting a new species of monster. Okay, this is March of 1812. The Boston Gazette ran a political cartoon depicting a new species of monster. It was called The Gerrymander, Gerry-Mander, the gerrymander. This was a forked-tongued creature that was shaped like a contorted Massachusetts voting district that the state's Jeffersonian Republicans had drawn to benefit their own party, Governor and future Vice President Elbridge Gerry signed off on his party's redistricting plan in February, unwittingly cementing his place in the United States lexicon of underhanded political tricks. Okay, of underhanded political tricks. Now, Federalist newspapers in Massachusetts reprinted the cartoon with this portmanteau of Gerry and salamander. Okay, it's a combination of Gerry and salamander. Okay, helping the new word to take off. Although the pronunciation has changed over time, Gerry's name is pronounced Gary, but Americans now pronounce the word bearing his name like it's spelled with a J, J-E-R-R-Y, like Ben and Jerry's. So they pronounce it gerrymander as opposed to gerrymander. The meaning has mostly remained the same. Gerrymandering is when politicians redraw voting districts to benefit their political party. Gerrymandering is when politicians redraw voting districts to benefit their political party. So this is the political cartoon, this picture here. This is the political cartoon that appeared in 1812 from the Boston Gazette. And it depicted a new species of monster, the gerrymander. It was a forked-tongued creature that was shaped like a contorted Massachusetts voting district. Okay. So this is where the term gerrymander comes from. And you see it says the gerrymander, like salamander. The term stems from this Gilbert Stuart cartoon of a Massachusetts electoral district twisted beyond all reason. Gilbert Stuart thought the shape of the district resembled a salamander, but his friend who showed him the original map called it a gerrymander after Massachusetts Governor Elbridge Gerry, who approved rearranging district lines for political advantage. Okay, so it's named after Massachusetts Governor Elbridge Gerry. Now, gerrymandering existed before it had a name. The practice of manipulating voting districts to secure political power predates the fearsome gerrymander. In 18th century England, and let me see if I can blow this up some more. Okay, hold on. All right, in 18th century England, political operatives created rotten boroughs with only a few eligible voters, making it easy for politicians to buy the residents' votes and gain seats in parliament. Now, after English colonists founded the United States, gerrymandering began almost immediately, said Thomas Hunter, a political science professor at the University of West Virginia. There's evidence that Virginia, North Carolina, and South Carolina drew districts to benefit some candidates over others in the late 18th and 19th centuries. Still, those gerrymandered districts were relatively normal looking compared to what would come later. Now, Professor Thomas Hunter said, I think that what they did in Massachusetts in 1812 really was on steroids compared to what had gone on before. He said, I think what they did in Massachusetts in 1812 was really on steroids compared to what they had done before. Now, that's because in 1812, Massachusetts gerrymandering was more brazen about contorting districts into odd shapes to maximize a party's gain. Even though the Jeffersonian Republicans received roughly 49% of the vote, they won 29 of the 40 seats in the state Senate. Even though they received 49% of the vote, they won 29 of the 40 seats in the state Senate. This led to backlash against the state's Jeffersonian Republican Party, not to be confused with the Republican Party, because the Republican Party that we know of, that was not founded until 1854. All right. And then in 1860, their candidate became president-elect in November of 1860. His name was Abraham Lincoln. Now, the next year, the Federalists regained control of the state legislature. Ironically, it was the Jeffersonian Republicans' thinly drawn districts that allowed the party to lose them with only a small shift in political opinion. Once in power, the Federalists redrew the districts. The 1813 election inspired cartoons showing the original gerrymander, but now showing it as a skeleton, Professor Thomas Hunter says. These cartoons suggested that the election had, quote, had killed off the monster, end quote. Now, gerrymandering is going to increase when African-American men win the vote or win or gain the right to vote. Okay, surprise, surprise. Okay, wow, how things stay the same. The names have changed. You know, what Bon Jovi said, it's all the same, only the names have changed. In Wanted Dead, in their song Wanted Dead or Alive, Bon Jovi was like 87, 88. Okay, all this stuff has stayed the same. So when African American men, when we start voting, okay, now they want to change the rules of the game. All right, like what they're doing in Georgia. Now the no excuse absentee voting law in Georgia went into effect. That Republicans passed that law in 2005 in the state legislature in Georgia. Now, as long as they could get Republicans elected into office, it was fine. When African Americans start voting absentee en masse in the 2020 presidential election, and then we end up electing 2 Democrats to the U.S. Senate and put Joe Biden in the White House and defeat Donald Trump in Georgia, now the same law that Republicans have been using for 15 years to elect Republicans, the same law. Now they want to change the rules once we learn the rules. Now they want to change the same law that they passed themselves. The same law Republicans passed in 2005 and were using for 15 years. Now that we learned the law and now we're using it to our advantage, now they want to change the rules of the game. See, you remember a couple of days ago, we talked about that article we talked about the survey from April 4th, 2018, the 50th anniversary of the assassination of Dr. King. And 40% of white people surveyed said they thought that black people would be equally as successful if we just tried harder. Well, see, what they don't talk about is how they keep changing the rules when we learn the rules. See, they don't talk about that. See, the same people that say African Americans will be equally as successful if we just tried harder. Well, first of all, you keep changing the rules of the game. When we learn the rules of the game, you keep changing them. Maybe you should stop trying so hard to rig the game. How about that? Read this article from Newsweek.com. 40% of whites think black people just need to try harder, poll finds. This is April 4th, 2018. This was the 50th anniversary of the assassination of Dr. King. See, when you hear people say things like this, they don't talk about how they keep changing the rules of the game that they wrote themselves. And they wrote the rules to their advantage. YouGov asked a number of questions on what it called racial resentment, one of which centered on whether the respondent agreed with the statement. It's really a matter of some people not trying hard enough. If blacks would only try harder, they could be just as well off as whites. Why don't you stop changing the rules once we learn the rules? How about that? Overall, 35% of respondents agreed, 16% strongly, 19% somewhat with that statement. 28% neither agreed nor disagreed. We'll post this here. See, what I want to know is, why do you keep changing the rules when we learn the rules? Why do you keep changing the laws when we learn the law and use it to our advantage? The same law that you were using, we learned the law, then we use it. Now you want to change it. So instead of saying, oh, we should try hard to be more successful, why don't you stop changing the rules of the game when we learn the rules of the game? Why don't you stop rigging the game? How about that? All right, so I want to go back to this history lesson on gerrymandering. All right, Ruby, thanks for the message. So gerrymandering increases when African American men win the right to vote. Now, also, another thing, it's important to understand some history of Georgia as well. Okay, former Confederate state, right? When you look at the Georgia runoff elections, we've talked about this before, and see, power is the ability to when we deal with politics is the legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources, and the writing of laws, statutes, ordinances, amendments, and treaties, their adoption, interpretation, and enforcement. This is what politics is. Now, if we look at Georgia, the statewide runoff elections in Georgia, that law is rooted in racism. What do I mean by that? That law was championed by a state representative who was a segregationist named Denmark Groover. And he pushes this bill through in 1963 to have statewide runoff elections for statewide positions like governor, secretary of state, U.S. senator. All right. Read this article from 11alive.com. We've talked about this before. All this ties into history. Runoffs arose to limit power of black voters in Georgia much of South, experts say. See, when you have people who want to say African Americans should just try harder, they don't want to deal with understanding what racism is. Racism is a system of advantage and privilege distributed based upon race. And racism occurs when one race of people control the majority of the wealth, power, resources, benefits, privileges, land, access to education, access to opportunity, media, jobs, etc. And they use this to marginalize, subordinate, and do harm to another race of people. This is what racism is. So if we look at what happened here, this is why they're fighting tooth and nail to try to take back these Senate seats, especially the Senate seat from Reverend Raphael Warnock, and keep Stacey Abrams out of the governorship. Because I guarantee you, if Stacey Abrams was governor right now in Georgia, she would have vetoed Senate Bill 202. This is why during 2018, when she was running for governor, and you had some African Americans in Georgia who said they weren't going to vote for Stacey Abrams because she didn't have a black agenda, even though many of her policies were beneficial to African Americans. But your dumb ass let somebody get in office who has an anti-black agenda, Brian Kemp. See, you said Stacey Abrams didn't have a black agenda, but you didn't see that Brian Kemp had an anti-black agenda. And an anti-black agenda is worse than not having a black agenda, because her policies were beneficial to African Americans. It just didn't say black agenda. But this is Georgia, a former Confederate state, and Georgia is the state that has the largest monument to the Confederacy that's still in existence today. It's called Stone Mountain. You're not going to become governor of Georgia running on a black agenda. I'm telling you right now. See, oftentimes we don't understand why most slaves that ran away at nighttime and not in the daytime. Because they knew they had a better chance of succeeding if they ran under the cover of night. In the daytime, before the night came and they ran away, they didn't announce they were going to run away. Usually they didn't tell the master, we're going to run away tonight while you were asleep. They just did it. They did it under the cover of night. So a lot of times people don't understand how to move under the cover of night and in silence. There was a reason why most slaves who ran away at night, there's a reason why most slaves who ran away at nighttime and not in the daytime. They didn't have degrees, but they weren't stupid. And understanding the history of Georgia, you're not going to become governor running on a quote unquote black agenda. But your policies can be beneficial for African Americans, but you don't have to call it a black agenda. Why? Because a lot of stuff you got to get passed through the state legislature. But first you got to be, first of all, you had to be elected to office. And still the majority of the people in Georgia are white. There's a reason why most slaves who ran away at nighttime at nighttime and not in the daytime. So runoffs arose to limit power of black voters in Georgia, much of South, experts say. We're going to play this clip here in just a second. I want to scroll down here. So they talk about Denmark Groover. Runoffs are linked to elections in the South and require candidates to receive a majority of the votes cast instead of a plurality of the votes. A majority of the votes cast as opposed to plurality. Plurality means you got the most number of votes. Majority means you need 50% plus one. Now, since blacks rarely form a majority, certainly not statewide, and often not in congressional districts, that runoff is an opportunity for the white majority to come together and beat a and beat back a challenge from a black candidate. Okay. Now, this was Cal Jilson, a political science professor at Southern Methodist University in Dallas, Texas. Cal Jilson told 11 Alive News there in Georgia, the Atlanta area. He said this when describing runoffs historically, which he said began in some states in the 19th century. So it wasn't just Georgia. See, a lot of these states have these runoff elections, especially southern states, and it's designed to lock African Americans out of statewide political power. When lawmakers such as Denmark Groover, State Representative Denmark Groover, wrote and passed laws requiring runoffs, they did not hide their intentions, according to Cal Jilson. Let me see here. So, in recent years, Georgia has been one of 7 states, along with Alabama, Arkansas, Mississippi, Oklahoma, South Carolina, and Texas, where runoffs are required during primaries if a single candidate does not receive at least one vote beyond a 50% threshold in an election. In 2 other states, the bar is even lower, 40% in North Carolina and 35% in Louisiana. South Dakota and Vermont have very limited instances in which they use runoffs according to Ballotpedia. Only Georgia and Louisiana use runoff elections for general elections according to Ballotpedia, both southern states. Okay, both former Confederate states also. Both states committed treason and sided with the Confederacy and fought against the Union to maintain slavery during the Civil War. All right, now I want to go to this clip here. Let's go to this. This deals with the history of runoff elections. All right, let's cue that up. Just a second. We'll cue that up. All right, let's go back to. So, see, it's important to understand this history because this ties into what's going on today. And the people's history and culture teaches them how to deal with the problems of the past in the present and the future to meet the needs of the community. To understand what's taking place today, how we got here, we have to understand the history and the laws that were put into place that got us to this point.
Georgia has shifted to the center of the political universe with 2 Senate races.
The process of runoff elections may seem fairly simple, but these contests once served a racially motivated purpose. 11 Alive's Joe Hankey with more for us tonight.
While many Georgia voters may be familiar with runoff elections, they may not be familiar with the history of runoffs in Georgia and across the South. At the Georgia state capitol in the 1960s, a state representative named Denmark Groover led a charge for runoff elections. A federal report looking at civil rights in America calls Groover a staunch segregationist who pushed for runoffs in Georgia as a way to challenge growing black political power. And, quote, support for the majority vote plan reinforced the moderate segregationist position. It did not remove anyone's right to cast a ballot, but it was commonly regarded as hampering African Americans to stigmatize bloc voters. While still allowing black voters to cast a ballot, runoffs at the time made sure candidates representing the white majority, not the interests of black citizens, would be elected.
They don't function precisely that way anymore, but one has to wonder what function they do have.
Cal Jilson is a political science professor at Southern Methodist University in Dallas, Texas. He says runoffs are linked to elections in the South, requiring a candidate to have more than 50% or a majority of votes cast to win an election.
Runoff is an opportunity for the white majority to come together and beat back a challenge from a black candidate.
Frequently, as you know. And when lawmakers such as Groover wrote and passed laws requiring runoffs, they did not hide their intentions.
Before anyone was politically correct, people spoke very directly about their sense of race and the importance of maintaining white supremacy. And that's what these electoral rules were intended to do.
Currently, Georgia is only one of 10 states, primarily in the South, using runoffs and primaries. Only Georgia and Louisiana use them for general elections. Jilson views runoffs as outdated election law.
There's less and less reason, and really fewer and fewer states as time goes by that use runoffs.
All right. So that is from 11 Alive in Georgia. We'll post this link here. You can check that out. Okay, let's continue here. Okay, so I'm going to go back to this article from history.com. Okay, so gerrymandering increases when black men win the vote. So though the Massachusetts monster was dead, the gerrymander, okay, we showed you that political cartoon. Though the Massachusetts monster was dead, the practice of gerrymandering continued for over 2 centuries, usually increasing or decreasing depending on the intensity of two-party competition at the time. There are fewer obvious instances of gerrymandering during the so-called era of good feelings from 1815 to 1825. There are fewer obvious instances of gerrymandering during the so-called era of good feelings from 1815 to 1825, yet gerrymandering increased in the 1830s after politicians established the rival Democratic and Whig party. So the Democratic Party was founded in 1828. The Whig Party, WHIG, is going to be founded about 1834. Okay. The Republican Party doesn't exist at this time. The Republican Party is not founded until 1854. So contrary to popular belief, because I still see some people posting on social media nonsense like the Democratic Party created slavery or something like that. The majority of the time slavery existed in the U.S., you didn't have a Democratic or Republican Party. I don't know where they got nonsense like that from, but okay. So when African-American men won the right to vote after the Civil War, so this is going to be the 15th Amendment of 1870, gerrymandering was taken up a notch, Professor Thomas Hunter says. Southern states in particular drew districts to maximize the electoral advantage for the Democratic Party, which most white Southern voters supported. And they supported the Democratic Party. Most white Southern voters at this time, during Reconstruction, they supported the Democratic Party over the Republican Party, which most African Americans supported at this time. This is long before the party realignment takes place. This is even, and this is before the Compromise of 1877, where the Democratic Party, where the Republican Party agreed to remove the Union troops out of the South, which were enforcing the laws to a certain extent to protect African Americans. The Republican Party agreed to remove the Union troops out of the South because that's what the Democrats wanted. In exchange, Rutherford B. Hayes, the Republican candidate for the 1876 presidential election, would become president because neither Rutherford B. Hayes or Samuel J. Tilden had enough electoral college votes to become president. This is known as the Compromise of 1877, which ends Reconstruction. So most of these black conservatives that say African Americans should lead the Democratic Party and go back to the Republican Party, there's two things they don't want to talk about. One, they don't want to talk about the Compromise of 1877. One. Two, they don't want to talk about the Lily White movement in 1928. Because the Lily White movement in 1928 was an effort by Republicans to push African Americans out of the Republican Party, ignore our issues, ignore our concerns, ignore the rise of the Ku Klux Klan. And that second incarnation of the Ku Klux Klan, that was founded in October 1915 by Reverend William Joseph Simmons. Reverend William Joseph Simmons founded the second incarnation of the Ku Klux Klan, which involved both Democrats and Republicans. Okay. And you have the rise of the Ku Klux Klan in the 1920s. And you have Republicans in 1928. They wanted to get Herbert Hoover elected as the Republican candidate. Herbert Hoover was running against a moderate Democrat named Al Smith from New York. So the Republicans implemented a Southern strategy to appeal to Southern segregationist Democrats in 5 former Confederate states and ignore the needs and concerns of African Americans, ignore the rise of the Ku Klux Klan. And Herbert Hoover wins that 1928 presidential election. He only serves 1 term because October 1929, the stock market crashes. Then you have the Great Depression. Herbert Hoover mishandles the Great Depression. And then this is going to lead to Franklin Roosevelt winning that 1932 presidential election. And because of Herbert Hoover, you're going to see African Americans start slowly going over to the Democratic Party. And more of us are going to start supporting President Roosevelt. And he gained more support also because of the New Deal. And even though we were discriminated against some in various aspects of the New Deal, it was still somewhat beneficial to us. And the Republicans are continuing to ignore our needs. And then in the 1947 presidential election, the Democrats had a more pro-civil rights agenda. And at the same time, you're going to have Strom Thurmond, who was a Republican. Strom Thurmond was a Democrat at the time. He's going to run for president as a Dixiecrat. These Southern segregationist Democrats. He's going to run for president as a Dixiecrat against civil rights. Strom Thurmond. He's going to lose that election. Strom Thurmond eventually is going to leave the Democratic Party and go over to the Republican Party. So a lot of these black conservatives don't want to talk about the Lily White movement in 1928 and don't want to talk about the Compromise of 1877. Most of them don't know that history anyway. All right, let's continue. So, let's look at this. So this was when states started to draw. So we're talking about after the 15th Amendment of 1870. Okay, when African American men won the right to vote after the Civil War, gerrymandering was taken up a notch. Southern states, in particular, drew districts to maintain the electoral advantage for the Democratic Party, which most Southern voters supported, over the Republican Party, which most black voters supported. And there is a there's an article from Washington Post. It's an article from the Washington Post here. The preacher who used Christianity to revive the KKK. This deals with Reverend William Joseph Simmons. The preacher who used Christianity to revive the Ku Klux Klan. Reverend William Joseph Simmons was inspired by the movie The Birth of a Nation, which debuted February 8, 1915. This article here is from April 10th, 2018 by Deneen L. Brown for the Washington Post. Let me see here. They talk about him. Wallace didn't refer directly to the Klan. It was born again that night in 1915 on Stone Mountain, and Christianity was used to justify a second wave of terror in 1915. Restricting membership to white Christians. The Klan wore white robes to symbolize purity, burned crosses to signify the light of Christ, and picked selective scriptures from the Bible to preach white supremacy. The Invisible Empire's comeback was aided by Hollywood's first blockbuster, D.W. Griffith's of The Birth of a Nation, which glamorized the Ku Klux Klan. By the early 1920s, the Klan boasted 5 million members across the country and had infiltrated thousands of churches with its hateful doctrines. Many ministers in Protestant denominations would openly declare their membership in the Klan, and creepy photos would capture Klan members in white hoods standing in churches and sitting in choir pews. In a 1922 article for the New York Times, the Ku Klux Klan in the South and West is largely dominated by lame duck preachers who could not make it good in the ministry. Let's see here. Okay, in his 1921 testimony to Congress, Reverend William Joseph Simmons said he relaunched the Ku Klux Klan after watching the film The Birth of a Nation. The 1915 racist blockbuster promoted the Klan as the great defender of white womanhood, because the movie depicts a black man trying to rape a white virgin. And the movie takes place, the movie's on YouTube. You should watch it. It's 3 hours. It's a silent movie. But the movie takes place during slavery, the Civil War, and Reconstruction. And it shows the Klan as being the heroes of white people, and they are suppressing a rebellion by former Union Negro soldiers. And they're saving white people, the Ku Klux Klan. And this movie comes out during the 50th year anniversary of the founding of the Ku Klux Klan, which was founded December 24th, 1865 in Pulaski, Tennessee. Okay, in the same month that the 13th Amendment is ratified and adopted. So the 1915 racist blockbuster promoted the Ku Klux Klan as the great defender of white womanhood. President Woodrow Wilson showed the film at the White House. There was a screening for President Woodrow Wilson at the White House of the film The Birth of a Nation also. So read this article here from the Washington Post. The preacher who used Christianity to revive the Ku Klux Klan. Okay. This is a picture here of Reverend William Joseph Simmons attends a congressional committee investigation of the Ku Klux Klan in 1921. All right, let's go back to this article here from history.com, and we have to get out of here. If you like this type of information, be sure to register for the online course that I teach, 9-week, 18-hour online course. It starts up Saturday, May 1st, 2021, Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, Understanding the Transatlantic Slave Trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Now, this was when, so when you have an increase in gerrymandering after the 15th Amendment of 1870, this was when states started to draw more long, stringy districts. The goal of these was usually to concentrate as many black voters as possible into one district, okay, so that the rest of the districts would have a white majority. So what they're doing is they're trying to redraw district lines to pack African Americans, as many as they can, into one district, so that we then can't impact elections in different districts. Okay, pack them into one district to try to neutralize our voting power. Now, in 1874, South Carolina introduced the first non-contiguous voting district. Contiguous means connected. Okay, the first non-contiguous voting district. Let me see. Can we close this out? All right. The first non-contiguous voting district. In 1874, South Carolina introduced the first non-contiguous voting district, but had to change back to contiguous districts for the 1876 election because the U.S. House of Representatives told the state, it would not seat any more members elected under such a system. In 1882, South Carolina created a boa constrictor district that concentrated Black Americans. I mean, see, a lot of us don't really understand the effort that went into trying to suppress the African American vote for decades, before 64 and 65. We can go back to the late 1800s. We can go to the early 1900s. In 1882 in South Carolina is where the Civil War started in 1860, okay? South Carolina was the first state to secede from the Union. In 1882, South Carolina created a boa constrictor district that concentrated African Americans who made up the majority of the state's population. They concentrated us into one winding district so that every other district had a white majority. Listen to this. In 1882, African Americans made up the majority of the population in South Carolina. So what they did is they packed almost all of us into one district that was a winding district to nullify our voting power. This is what's known as the boa constrictor district. So that and they did this, the district concentrated African Americans who made up the majority of the state's population into one winding district so that every other district had a white majority. Now, gerrymandering in the South fell off in the early 20th century due to the success of suppressing Black voters through poll taxes, the threat of lynching, and other insidious tactics. Now, because the only people who could vote in southern states were white and usually Democrats, the white Democratic establishment did not feel it needed to manipulate districts to maintain its majority. Now, during the 1960s, you have a redistricting revolution, and it's going to challenge gerrymandering. In fact, after the 1900 U.S. Census, some states did not change their districts at all until the 1960s. As more people moved to cities, particularly African Americans and immigrants, these states maintained districts that gave disproportionate power to white rural non-immigrant Americans. The U.S. Supreme Court changed this in the 1960s with a series of court decisions known as the redistricting revolution. Under Chief Justice Earl Warren, the court ruled that all state voting districts must have roughly equal populations. All state voting districts must have roughly equal populations. In addition, states must adjust their federal congressional districts after every 10-year census so that each of the 435 members of the U.S. House of Representatives represents roughly the same number of people. So in a congressional district is roughly 700,000 people that they represent. Okay? It's roughly 700,000 people that are represented in one congressional district. Now, combined with the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which protected African Americans' right to vote, these Supreme Court decisions ensured voters were more evenly represented in their state legislatures and the U.S. House of Representatives. The court singled out the U.S. Senate as a unique institution whose members did not need to represent the same number of people. Okay, because you have two U.S. senators and they represent a state. You have different Different states have different populations, so it's different for the U.S. Senate. But within a couple of decades, computer technology made it easy for political operatives to strategically map districts. It made it easier for political operatives to strategically map districts to benefit their party under the new rules. You've got redistricting schemes after the 1990s that were completely unlike anything you've ever seen before, Thomas Hunter says. North Carolina's 12th district became known as the I-85 district, because it basically ran along the interstate highway at one point, growing narrower than the highway itself. Modern forms of gerrymandering continues. In some ways, it's politicians picking their voters as opposed to voters picking their politicians. In some ways, it's politicians picking their voters as opposed to voters picking their politicians. So this is a really good article by Becky Little for History.com. .com is the official website of the History Channel. How gerrymandering began in the U.S. How gerrymandering began in the U.S. And lastly, there was a example of gerrymandering. Probably one I don't know if it was one of the worst examples, but it's it's an example that led to an economic boycott. Let me see if I can find it here. This was the Tuskegee, Alabama economic boycott of 1957. Okay, most people are not familiar with this. Tuskegee, Alabama economic boycott of 1957. And it's going to lead to the lawsuit of Gomillion versus Lightfoot. And what happened was that, let's see, I think I have this still bookmarked, hopefully. I have this bookmarked, okay. Global Nonviolent Action Database has this information. I actually did a presentation on this a few years ago. I have to go into my archives and pull up my notes on this. Black citizens boycott white merchants for U.S. voting rights, Tuskegee, Alabama, 1957 to 1961. This economic boycott lasted 4 years. Okay, it's the Tuskegee, Alabama economic boycott of 1957. And what happened was in 1957, in an effort to frustrate increasing black voter registration and the threat of losing a white voter majority, Alabama, let's see, in an effort to frustrate increasing black voter registration and the threat of losing a white voter majority, Alabama State Senator Sam Engelhardt sponsored Act 140, which proposed to transform the Tuskegee city boundaries from a square into a 28-sided shape, resembling a seahorse that included every single one of the 600 white voters and excluded all but 5 of the 400 African American voters. This is probably one of the worst examples of gerrymandering. This took place in at Alabama. This was the state legislature in Alabama that did this in 1957. They're trying to suppress the African American vote. So they wanted to, Alabama State Senator Sam Inglehart sponsored Act 140. And this proposed to transform the Tuskegee city boundaries from a square to a 28-sided shape resembling a seahorse. A 28-sided shape resembling a seahorse. That included, so they want to redraw these districts, redraw the boundaries, and when they redraw the boundaries, it's going to include all of the 600 white voters into this new district and exclude all except 5 of the 400 African American voters to lock us out. Now, this was at a time when African Americans in Tuskegee had a higher literacy rate than the white people in Tuskegee because of Tuskegee Institute. Now, Sam Inglehart, Alabama State Senator Sam Inglehart, was a plantation owner, surprise, surprise, and executive secretary of the Alabama Association of White Citizens Council, surprise, surprise. He explained, the folks up there feel like I do. Civil rights legislation is going to pass the United States Senate earlier this year or the next, and we're going to be prepared for it. We cannot stand seeing a Negro in the Alabama legislature. So we're just going to change the rules on you. So not only was he a plantation owner, he was the secretary of the Alabama Association of the White Citizens Council. The White Citizens Council starts in Mississippi in 1954 as a direct backlash to the Brown versus Board of Education 1954 U.S. Supreme Court case. And then the White Citizens Council, they're going to spread throughout the South. They start in Mississippi in 54, and then all these southern states, they're going to get their own chapters, versions of the White Citizens Council. So read about this, because this economic boycott put 100 white businesses out of business. It was the economic boycott we launched to fight back against the what was taking place in the state legislature. And they're going to end up putting 100 white businesses out of business. This boycott lasted 4 years. The Tuskegee, Alabama economic boycott of 1957. Okay, and then there's also this article here. You can read Alabama News Center, alabamanewscenter.com, alabamanewscenter.com. On this day in Alabama history, boycott of white businesses began in Tuskegee, Alabama. That was June 25th, 1957. June 25th, 1957. In 1957, the Alabama legislature sought to protect the white political rule in Tuskegee by redrawing voting districts. The gerrymandered boundaries placed the Tuskegee Institute and all but a few black residents outside of the city limits. The gerrymandered boundaries placed the Tuskegee Institute and all but a few black residents outside the city limits. On June 25th, an overflow crowd of 3,000 of Macon County's black citizens gathered at Butler Chapel AME Zion Church for the first of many weekly mass meetings. It resulted in a boycott of white businesses driven by the Tuskegee Civic Association that would last 4 years and draw national attention. The boycott was called off after the U.S. Supreme Court in 1961 tossed out the gerrymandering districts as a violation of the 15th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, which bans the federal government and states from denying people the right to vote because of their race. Just as Georgia is engaged in actually trying to deny many African Americans of the right to vote, trying to make it harder for us to vote. Just as you have 47 state legislatures that are trying to push through 361 voter restriction bills to basically do the same thing. This is the same thing these people pulled in 1957 in Tuskegee, Alabama. We boycotted their asses back then and won. We're going to have to do the same thing now. Okay, so this is why we have to understand history. A people's history and culture teaches them how to deal with the problems of the past in the present and the future to meet the needs of the community. They were dealing with Jim Crow back then, and now we're dealing with Jim Crow 2.0. We're dealing with Jim Crow in suits. We're dealing with Jim Crow Esquire. We're dealing with the grandchildren of Jim Crow and Jane Crow. This is why we have to understand history. How do we deal with these people and their ancestors back then? Because we're going to have to do the same thing today. All right. If you be sure to register for the online course that is starting up Saturday, May 1st, 2021. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Maafa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. We deal with thousands of years of history and what led up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. And we have the information right at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. We just posted the link here. You can register for that. As soon as you register, there's a lot of bonus content you can watch, because we just had a course that ended a few days ago, this past Wednesday or so, and you can go back and watch that course. And we have a new one starting up Saturday, May 1st. So when you go to our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, right on the homepage, it has the information for our radio show. We're on 6 days a week, Monday through Friday, 11 p.m. to 12 midnight Eastern Standard Time. Sundays, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. You can click here to listen to audio podcasts of our shows. Click here to read articles I've written. And then we have the information here. It's going to start up May 1st, 2021. But click right here to register. And then click here to enroll. As soon as you enroll, you can start watching content. You can watch from around the world. All these sessions, we do them live, but they're all recorded, so you can go back and watch them over and over again. Okay. And then also, if you'd like this type of information, you can support the African History Network, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, $ the AHN Show through Cash App, and then through PayPal, paypal.me / the AHN Show, paypal.me / the AHN Show, or at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. And when you do it through PayPal, be sure to type in $ the AHN Show, SHOW. And it'll say Michael, and it'll have my picture there as well. So this helps us keep doing the research, stay on the air, keep broadcasting 6 days a week. A lot of the type of information I share, you're not going to find this in a lot of other places. We're going to deal with a lot of entertainment and gossip and things like this. All right. Look out for me on Friday on Roland Martin Unfiltered. I'm a panelist every Friday on Roland Martin Unfiltered. So we'll talk about on our show Friday, we'll talk about some of what happened on Roland Martin Unfiltered also. All right, look, we have to get out of here. Remember, at the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world. Because right now, it's correct wrong behavior is not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Peace. Digital Dandelion's Technical Solutions works with businesses like yours to create an operations manual for your business, which is something many businesses don't have. According to AARP, more than 30% of small business owners are over 50 years old. Many business owners want to retire by selling their businesses or by passing their businesses on to their children. However, according to Forbes Investment Advisors, many retiring owners' attempts to sell their businesses for retirement fail. You cannot sell your business without a business manual. Your children also cannot inherit your business because there is no way to run it. Your business does not have to die when you leave. Their business Bible products will give you the tools you need for a thriving business that can make you money even after you retire. Are you looking at increasing your business's annual revenue? Digital Dandelions can help you make at least $100,000 in annual revenue and expand your business. Speak with them today about solidifying your business. Visit digitaldandelions.com today and get a free 30-minute consultation. For 25 years, the Black History 101 Mobile Museum has carried on the rich legacy of the Black Museum movement in America by showcasing original artifacts of the Black experience at colleges, universities, K-12 schools, corporations, libraries, conferences, and cultural events, making it the most traversed Black History mobile exhibit in American history. Dr. Khalid El-Hakim is the founder of the Black History 101 Mobile Museum, and he is a highly sought-after public speaker on topics of Black history, social studies, education, museum studies, hip-hop, and race relations. Dr. Khalid was named among the change makers for NBC Universal's Erase the Hate campaign and listed as one of the 100 men of distinction for Black enterprise. He recently founded the Michigan Hip Hop Archive on the campus of Western Michigan University. The Black History 101 Mobile Museum is currently scheduling in-person and virtual exhibits nationwide. For more information, please contact Dr. Khalid El-Hakim directly at 313-645-4197, 313-645-4197, or visit their website at blackhistorymobilemuseum.com. That's blackhistorymobilemuseum.com. You can also email him at bhistory101@yahoo.com, bhistory101@yahoo.com.
Gain knowledge in minutes from insightful summaries of progressive and socially conscious books. Blacklisted gives you access to curated content that'll satisfy your curiosity to learn and understand different perspectives. Empower yourself through inspirational and actionable ideas. It's easy to read or listen to on the go. Blacklisted. Empower yourself. Start your free trial today.
Hi, I'm Joel Wilson, President and CEO of JCW Computer Consulting LLC, a technology implementation firm with over 20 years of satisfying customers. We offer a full spectrum of industry top-tier branded services. We are an authorized partner or reseller for Lenovo, Zoom, T-Mobile, Microsoft 365 and Surface tablets, Google Workspace, Acer, Asus, Samsung, PCmatic security software, and many more. Our online store features